The teeth were wrong. They were too large, too sharp, and they did not belong on a whale. Scientists examining the fossil initially assumed a mistake had occurred, as bones sometimes shift during burial and parts of different animals end up together. This seemed plausible because whales are not built this way. Whales do not need cutting teeth. They do not grip prey or bite large animals in prolonged struggle, but these teeth were locked into the jaw. As excavation continued, the rest of the skull emerged, massive and dense, unmistakably from a whale. The jaw was thick and reinforced with enormous muscle attachment points. This was not a damaged specimen or deformity. Every feature matched. Every bone confirmed the same conclusion. The teeth belonged exactly where they were found. Modern whales follow a consistent pattern. Baleen whales filter tiny animals from seawater. Toothed whales use simple teeth and suction to capture fish or squid. Even the most aggressive whales alive today rely on speed, teamwork, or intelligence. None are built to bite with devastating force. None are designed to hold on to large prey that fights back. This fossil defied all of that. Each tooth was thick and deeply rooted, shaped to puncture and grip rather than slice. They were not delicate feeding tools. They were weapons. Teeth like these only develop on animals that hunt large muscular prey, the kind that struggles, the kind that can injure a predator during capture. Evolution does not produce this equipment without reason. As the skull was reconstructed, the picture became clearer. The jaws were capable of delivering extreme force. The skull bones were reinforced to handle stress from violent impacts. This was not a whale adapted for gentle feeding or deep-sea suction. This was a whale designed for confrontation. To understand why this mattered requires understanding what whales are supposed to be. Whales evolved to escape competition. They became massive not to fight other giants, but to exploit food sources no one else could use. Tiny prey, deep oceans, vast distances. That strategy works because it avoids direct conflict. This fossil represented the opposite. It suggested a whale that moved toward danger instead of away from it, one that did not specialize in small or defenseless prey, one that had evolved to overpower something large enough to resist. That kind of lifestyle is rare in the ocean because it is expensive, risky, and usually fails. Only after the evidence became impossible to deny did researchers give the fossil a name, Livyatan. And once that name was spoken, the meaning of those teeth became impossible to ignore. Teeth like these were never meant for fish or squid. They were meant for something much larger. A whale is not supposed to look like this. That is the starting point scientists had to confront once the skull was fully studied. Every modern whale follows a basic design rule. Their bodies are built to reduce conflict, not invite it. Baleen whales filter food that cannot fight back. Toothed whales rely on suction, speed, and coordination. Even the largest whales alive today avoid direct physical battles whenever possible. Their survival depends on efficiency, not violence. Livyatan broke that rule at the level of bone. The most obvious difference was the teeth. Modern sperm whales do have teeth, but they are simple and unevenly used, helping grip soft prey like squid rather than tear into muscle or bone. Livyatan's teeth were different entirely. They were thick, evenly spaced, and deeply rooted in the jaw. Each one was shaped to withstand force from multiple directions. These were not teeth designed for holding prey briefly. They were designed to stay embedded while something struggled. That alone reveals something important. Teeth like these only make sense if the prey is large, powerful, and dangerous. Small animals do not require this level of reinforcement. Fish do not fight back hard enough to justify it. Squid lack bones or muscles that demand crushing force. Evolution would never waste energy building teeth this extreme, unless the reward was worth the risk. The skull confirmed the same conclusion. Livyatan's head was not lightweight or flexible. It was massive and reinforced, with thick bone and strong attachment points for jaw muscles. This kind of structure is expensive to maintain. It adds weight and slows movement. But it also allows an animal to bite with enormous force without shattering its own skull. That trade-off only makes sense for a predator that relies on brute strength at close range. Living whales avoid this kind of anatomy because it locks them into a dangerous strategy. Once you commit to biting large prey, there is no easy retreat. Injuries become likely. A single failed hunt can be fatal. That is why most ocean predators either hunt smaller animals or rely on teamwork to reduce risk. Livyatan appears to have done neither. Instead, it evolved alone into a role whales do not usually occupy. The jaw mechanics support this. The way the teeth fit together suggests a grip and hold bite rather than a quick snap. This kind of bite is meant to disable prey, not just injure it. It is the kind of bite seen in apex predators that must overpower victims similar in size to themselves. That puts Livyatan in a very small and very dangerous category. Why would a whale move toward this strategy when evolution usually pushes whales away from it? The answer is not simply aggression. Aggression alone does not shape bones. Environment does. Opportunity does. If this whale evolved such extreme features, the ocean at that time allowed or even rewarded this behavior. There must have been large prey available in abundance and enough energy to support a predator that hunted in the most expensive way possible. This was not a mistake in evolution. It was a calculated design shaped by a specific moment in Earth's history. But the anatomy alone does not tell us what Livyatan was actually doing in the water. Teeth and skulls tell us how an animal hunts, not what it hunts. To answer that, scientists had to look beyond the bones and into the ecosystem Livyatan lived in. And once they did, the picture became far more unsettling. The only prey that explains these teeth was not fish and not squid. It was other whales. In the ocean, size usually protects you. Most large animals are safe simply because there are very few predators capable of attacking them. Whales grow massive not to dominate other giants, but to escape danger altogether. That is the rule. Livyatan flipped it. This was not a whale trying to stay out of the food chain. This was a whale built to sit at the very top of it. The anatomy points to one unavoidable conclusion. Livyatan's prey could not have been small. Fish would not justify the teeth. Squid would not explain the reinforced skull. The only animals large enough, common enough, and rich enough in calories to support this predator were other marine mammals, in particular, other whales. During Livyatan's time, the oceans were crowded with medium-sized whales. Many species were far smaller than today's giants, but still large, muscular, and slow enough to be targeted. These whales traveled predictable routes, surfaced regularly to breathe, and carried enormous energy reserves in the form of blubber and muscle. For a predator capable of killing one, the reward would have been massive. This is where Livyatan's hunting strategy starts to make sense. It was not a pursuit predator. Chasing another whale over long distances would waste energy and invite injury. Instead, Livyatan was likely an ambush hunter. The open ocean may seem empty, but it is full of blind zones. Light fades quickly with depth. Sound travels far, but direction can be deceptive. A large predator that understood these conditions could approach without being seen. Livyatan's size would have helped here, not hindered it. Its bulk allowed it to move quietly through deeper water, using the darkness below as cover. When prey surfaced to breathe, it became briefly vulnerable. That moment was enough. The teeth tell us how the attack ended. Rather than slicing or tearing, Livyatan's teeth were built to lock in. A successful bite did not need to kill instantly, it needed to disable. A powerful grip to the flank, head, or tail could cause massive trauma, disrupt swimming, or trigger shock. Once mobility was compromised, the outcome was no longer in doubt. In water, control is survival. Losing it is fatal. This is a brutal way to hunt, but it is efficient. One successful kill could sustain Livyatan for a long time. That efficiency explains why such a dangerous strategy could exist at all. The ocean at that moment provided enough reward to justify the risk. It is tempting to compare Livyatan to modern orcas, but the difference matters. Orcas hunt whales using intelligence, teamwork, and coordination. They tire prey, isolate calves, and rely on group behavior to reduce danger. Livyatan did not have that option. Everything about its skull suggests a solitary hunter. It did not surround prey. It ended encounters quickly. That distinction is important. Orcas are adaptable. Their strategy works in many environments. Livyatan's strategy was narrow. It depended on the right prey, the right conditions, and the right balance of energy and risk. If any part of that equation changed, the system would collapse. The ocean itself made this possible. Water supports body weight, allowing massive predators to maneuver without crushing their own organs. It absorbs impact, reducing the chance of immediate injury during collisions. It also hides movement. A predator does not need to be fast if it can strike unseen. These factors gave Livyatan a window where size and power could outweigh agility and numbers. But this window was small. Whale-on-whale predation is one of the most unstable strategies in nature. It concentrates risk into every hunt. One mistake, one injury, one failed bite can end a predator's life. That is why evolution rarely allows it to persist. When it does appear, it does not last long. Livyatan was not a trend, it was an exception. Nature usually avoids predators that hunt their own equals. Across ecosystems, the most stable food chains are built on imbalance. Predators target prey that is smaller, slower, or defenseless enough to keep risk low and success high. The moment a hunter begins targeting animals close to its own size, everything becomes fragile, energy costs rise, injury becomes likely. Failure carries consequences that cannot be recovered from. Whale-on-whale predation sits at the extreme edge of what evolution is willing to tolerate. Livyatan lived on that edge. Hunting large prey is expensive. A predator that targets another whale must invest enormous energy just to attempt a kill. The approach, the strike, the struggle, and the aftermath all demand power. Even a successful hunt burns through reserves that smaller prey would never require. This only works if each kill provides a massive payoff, and if those kills are frequent enough to sustain the predator between attempts. Miss too often, and starvation follows. Then there is the problem of injury. Large prey fights back, bones collide, muscles strain, teeth can break. In the ocean, a damaged jaw or a torn muscle is not an inconvenience, it is a death sentence. A predator that cannot bite properly cannot feed. Unlike smaller animals, a giant marine predator cannot simply switch to easier meals. Its size locks it into a narrow menu. That is why evolution usually steers large animals away from risky hunting styles. Livyatan ignored that warning, but only because the conditions briefly allowed it. At the time Livyatan evolved, the oceans were different. Climate conditions supported high productivity, whale diversity was high, and many species were medium-sized rather than gigantic. These whales were large enough to provide huge energy returns, but small enough to be overpowered by a specialized predator. The balance was just right, and it did not last long. This explains why Livyatan appears only once in the fossil record. Evolution did not fail to repeat it by accident. The strategy required a perfect alignment of factors: abundant prey of the right size, warm oceans that supported high metabolism, open water environments that favored ambush over endurance. Remove even one of these elements, and the design collapses. This is where comparisons with other apex predators matter, especially Megalodon. Megalodon is often imagined as Livyatan's counterpart, but their strategies were fundamentally different. Megalodon relied on cutting teeth and repeated attacks to disable prey through blood loss. It could afford to disengage, circle, and strike again. That flexibility reduced risk. Livyatan did not have that luxury. Its teeth were built to hold, not slice. Its strategy demanded commitment. Once it bit, the encounter had to end quickly. That difference made Megalodon's approach more adaptable across changing environments. Livyatan's approach was powerful but rigid. As climates shifted and ecosystems changed, that rigidity became a problem. Ocean temperatures began to cool. Whale populations changed in size and distribution. Some species grew larger, others disappeared. The prey landscape that made Livyatan viable began to fragment. The same anatomy that once gave it dominance now trapped it in a narrowing ecological corner. There was no easy way out. Livyatan could not shrink quickly. It could not switch to hunting smaller prey without losing efficiency. It could not rely on group hunting to reduce risk. Its entire design was optimized for a world that was slipping away. Evolution favors systems that bend. Livyatan was built to break through obstacles, not adapt around them. That is why this strategy did not spread. That is why it did not repeat. And that is why Livyatan stands alone in the fossil record, not as a missing link, but as a warning about how narrow success can be. Because when the ocean changed, Livyatan did not change with it. It vanished. At the height of its existence, the ocean was crowded with giants. This was an era of peak competition. Large predators shared the same waters. Enormous sharks, fast-moving marine mammals, and a wide range of whales all overlapped in the same ecosystems. Every successful hunter had to be efficient, specialized, and perfectly matched to its environment. In that world, Livyatan was not an anomaly. It was a precise fit. Its size, its teeth, and its hunting strategy aligned exactly with the conditions of the time. For a brief window, everything worked. Warm oceans supported high metabolic demands. Whale populations were dense and diverse. Medium-sized whales were abundant enough to sustain a predator that hunted infrequently but decisively. Energy flowed upward through the food web, without interruption. Livyatan did not need to adapt. It did not need to experiment. It occupied a narrow role and filled it completely. Then the world began to shift. Global climates cooled gradually, but the effects on marine ecosystems were immediate. Cooling water holds less energy. Productivity drops. Food chains tighten. As conditions changed, whale populations responded. Some species declined. Others migrated. Many grew larger. Pushing beyond the size range, Livyatan was optimized to attack. The prey that once made its strategy viable became harder to find and harder to kill. At the same time, competition increased. Other predators were better equipped to handle change. Sharks with slicing teeth could target a wider range of prey. Smaller marine mammals relied on speed, intelligence, and cooperation. These hunters could switch strategies when conditions demanded it. Livyatan could not. Its anatomy locked it into a single approach. When that approach stopped working, there was no backup. This is how extreme strategies collapse. A hunting method that relies on rare, high-reward kills fails quickly when those rewards disappear. Missed opportunities stretch into long gaps between meals. Energy reserves drain. Injuries linger longer. Reproduction slows. Populations shrink. Once numbers fall below a certain point, recovery becomes impossible. Evolution does not rescue designs that only work under perfect conditions. Livyatan did not fade gradually. It vanished. The ocean did not replace it. No other whale evolved the same combination of size, teeth, and jaw strength. No lineage returned to whale-on-whale predation as a primary strategy. The reasons are clear. The risk is too high. The energy cost is too great. The margin for error is too small. Natural selection favors systems that survive change, not ones that dominate briefly. Looking back, it is easy to label Livyatan a monster. Its teeth inspire fear. Its behavior seems violent. But that framing misses the point. Livyatan was not a failure of nature. It was a solution, precisely shaped for a world that no longer exists. Evolution is not a ladder climbing toward perfection. It is a series of experiments. Some designs persist because they can bend when conditions shift. Others succeed only when the environment holds still. Livyatan belonged to the second group. It thrived during a narrow chapter of Earth's history, then disappeared when that chapter closed. That is why its story matters. It shows us the limits of dominance. It reminds us that power without flexibility is fragile. And it explains why certain forms never return, no matter how effective they once were. A whale that hunted whales existed once, and the ocean was never built to handle it twice.